If ever your life could be a true crime podcast episode, then this podcast is for you. We're about to embark on a roller coaster of emotions, insights, survival, and stories about escape. So buckle up and let the journey begin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back into the Escape Pod. I'm Julie.
I'm Charity.
And we have a special guest. It's my favorite kind of day. Do you want to make the introduction, Charity?
Yes, Hollie Strand. Hollie, what is your actual title?
Forensic examiner.
Forensic examiner, which is a really cool title.
But just a fancy way to say lab rat.
Yeah. So Hollie is a community staple. Spokesperson for the people who don't have voices and, working a lot with children who have been victimized in our community in a variety of ways. Is it all online or is it mostly online?
What I do now is all online.
All online. Okay.
Well, I would have to maybe preface that because it's online, but some of our cases are hands-on local, but also the nexus is online.
Okay.
Right?
So, we're always talking about escaping things. And of course, here at One Heart, we serve a lot of people who have been victims of a variety of horrific things. And if we can learn from some of the work that you do on ways that we can prevent these things from happening in our own families and own circles, own lives, obviously that's going to be a win. Even though some of this stuff's really hard to talk about, we do talk about it and we do go there. But it is with the mindset of helping to educate people. I mean, we just recorded an episode on forced and childhood marriages. Wow. And there's so many people who think, well, that doesn't even happen in this country, let alone South Dakota. Oh, yeah, it does. We rank 23rd. So,
wow.
Yeah. So, it's just knowledge is power. The more we know, the better we should be able to do. The more we know, the more we can protect. And we know that, our kids, I've had it happen to a friend recently where they're getting into things that parents just don't know it's possible to get into, right? Yeah. And so we just hope that this episode can illuminate and educate and empower us to be able to protect the kid. There's a whole slew of people who are doing nothing but figuring out ways to prey upon our children and the vulnerable, and they're just the worst kind of dirt.
On that note, and in the interest of full disclosure, I have to tell you that I've kind of dreaded this episode because, as Charity mentioned, Hollie is well known in our community and your presentations are very well known. And people always say, it's horrifying what she talks about, but you have to go.
You need to know.
And I haven't actually sat in on one of your presentations, not usually because I just don't care. I very much care. It's usually a logistics thing, a timing thing, whatever the case may be. But I did kind of today thinking about this.
I'm going to pass the tin of rescue pasties to you today.
Just in case.
You need to calm yourself down.
It is. I have 2 kids and it is terrifying. And so, but we do need to learn.
Yes.
We do need to know. I half jokingly say ignorance is bliss, but I really don't want to be ignorant.
But what you don't know can hurt you, or it can
definitely hurt your
lives.
children.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
For sure. So before we dig in with Hollie, we are going to talk about what we're escaping this week here in the Escape Pod. I had it and I lost it. This kind of does go along with our topic. High school registration.
You're
going
to have a high
child because he'll be in
no.
high school soon. I can't, you guys. I'm like, what happened?
What choice do you have?
He was 1 a year ago, and now he's not. So that is tonight.
I'm sorry.
Can you believe it?
It's weird.
Isn't it weird?
Yeah.
I can't. So I'm struggling with that a little bit. What about you? What are you escaping?
I clearly have a problem. I am escaping when I'm stressed out. I don't eat. I don't drink. Alcohol. I shop. And I don't go shopping. I really don't enjoy going out and shopping, but I'm playing a brain-numbing game on my phone and these freaking ads pop up. And so
it knows you like to shop.
It knows I like to shop. And I have fallen prey to 2 companies. So lesson learned, I promise you, I will get to the lesson point here. I have learned some valuable lessons. So one of these things, there's these Pilates reformers. And I have like a home gym, and I'm always looking for new things because I get bored with things very easily. So I bought this Pilates reformer, supposed to be super cool. It was a piece of shit. You can bleep that out later, but there's no other word. And like imagine being on your forearms and needing to glide over this thing, and like where it folds, it's like clunk, and it sticks. And not supposed to do that. So they're like, oh, you can ship it back to China and give us a refund, and then we'll give you a refund. I'm like, no, I'm just going to blast you on the podcast and everywhere else I can because you should you sent me a literal piece of garbage, and I'm not going to pay $100 or more to get it back to China. So anyway, that was one company called Pilates Move. Please be aware. Okay. And then, of course, recently I've lost quite a bit of weight, and so all my coats are too big. And so I got sucked into an ad, and I bought some coats, and they are all they might as well be Halloween costumes. It's such a crap, and I'm waiting for like months to get the stuff, right? Not knowing that the company's in China. Yeah. So now I'm going to, lesson learned,
do a little more research.
The damn company, not hit the ad the first time because you'll get it again, and go research. So these were both just complete scams. So Lux Glamour and Pilates Move, both BS companies. Okay. U.S. consumers beware.
I think, fortunately, I've known enough people who have made that mistake that if I don't know the store myself, like I've shopped there before and had a good experience, I might even like look, but I never bother. Okay, Holly, what are you escaping?
Right now, I am escaping an incredibly long report I'm writing.
Oh,
so long.
We're glad you're here with us then.
Yes.
We're helping you procrastinate.
I love that. Because it must be done.
You can scream in here. It's padded. I mean,
love it.
Let out all your angst.
I might need one of these.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, we've offered this up to Laura, too. You know, if you just need a timeout, you can come to the padded cell. It works. It's great. You really don't hear much when you're down here. It's nice.
No.
This is lovely.
Yeah.
Well, we are glad that you're here. How would you like to start? Do you have something in mind, Charity, or you just want to?
Not necessarily in mind, though. This kind of. Well, yeah, it came out of when we had Miriam and Jamie in here from the RCPD's youth outreach, and they brought you up, and I was like, Hollie would be.
She'd be great.
A fantastic guest to have on the Escape Pod. And then, of course, you know, we talk about we talk about victimization almost every episode. Sometimes we have some fun, goofy stuff, but most of the time there's some type of victimization. And obviously this is the world you live in, trying to hold the people who do these types of things accountable. So I just thought it would be a really eye-opening episode for so many listeners because I think people are generally aware that these things happen, but I don't think they are aware enough to the scale on which these things happen and how prevalent it is and how the internet is a cesspool of horror.
So how did you get into this work? Let's start there.
Sure. If you would have asked me 26 years ago, I would have laughed just at the idea of working internet crimes against children. Prior to that, I worked as a forensic interviewer for Children's Home Child Advocacy Center.
Okay.
And while I worked there, you know, I would fix computers, fix printers, fix everything. And so there was always a joke that if I ever left, it would be to go to ICAC. So I could work child abuse and work technology.
And here you are.
And here I am. So, I mean, but I actually cut my teeth working with offenders. So I counseled offenders in a supermax security prison, worked in an inpatient sex offender treatment program in a max security. I did outpatient sex offender treatment in Las Vegas. And then I was a police officer in Martin. So I went from working with offenders to arresting offenders to interviewing victims and now, sorting through images and videos of their handiwork. So, I mean, just not anything like looking back saying, wow, this is very purposeful. It was just kind of one of those paths that God set me on, and here I am 26 years later.
What is your day-to-day work like?
It depends. So some mornings are search warrants. Some mornings are prepping for court. Some mornings, many mornings, I'm just sorting through images and videos of child abuse material, writing reports. Sometimes it's out in the public, out in our communities in Western South Dakota presenting. No day is the same. So most of our cases are like child pornography, child exploitation, child solicitation, child sex trafficking. But we also have the tools. So the tools and the licensing that is required for our forensic software, that we may be assigned a homicide case or a missing person case. We may help out with the digital evidence for other cases. When I first started, there was times that Game Fish and Parks would bring us stuff for like poaching. On game cams, and I was like, all right.
You're like, this isn't why I got into this, but okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but it was a nice break.
I suppose.
Yeah.
Sure. Your presentations, as we've mentioned, are well known in the community. What topics do you tend to cover? What would you say surprises? Typically, you're talking to parents. What stands out the most for them after they've heard you?
I think what Charity had mentioned, the actual targeting of children. I think that most people think, well, I trust my kid, so I trust that my kid won't actively pursue something, but I don't think that they figured that piece of it out. Like there's people in groups actively pursuing their child. I just, looking back, I can't imagine, if you went back 30 years ago and somebody were to knock on your door and say, may I speak with your child alone in their bedroom? You would pick up the phone and call law enforcement. Absolutely. And be like, somebody's asking it. But yet we give our kids devices in which that's all who's talking to them. I mean, they know very few. I think parents are shocked at the amount that the digital advertising that targets their kids. I think that they're just shocked on the pornography exposure, just a little bit of everything. I think that's kind of where most parents come from, is like, I have a good kid, so I trust that they'll do good things, not thinking about what other people that they engage with might lead their kids to do.
Yeah, it's like defensive driving, right? Like, you're not on the road alone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you have to protect yourself because you don't know who else is out there and what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And you said people in groups. So do you find typically it's not just a single individual that is preying upon a child? Or like what are the statistics around that? Is it actually organized cells of people that are trying to, how does that look?
It's a little bit of everybody. So you may have individuals that are operating individually, and that's all they're doing is they're pursuing children. They're trying to get images, videos. You may have groups of people in which they collect and share together. So
they're scumbags and
yep,
just horrible, horrible human beings.
Communities of scumbags. Yeah. It's gross.
And when you think about kids, I have 5 kids at home. And even if I did nothing more than give them my undivided attention every day, they would still want more attention. And so when you think of our kids on the internet, and there's people out there that are willing to hang on their every word and tell them how great they are, wonderful they are, beautiful they are, talented they are, and they get sucked in real quick. If this person loves me, they adore me, they think I'm the best thing on the planet. And then there comes the request. Can I get a pic? Can I get a vid?
What are the ages you normally see this starting at?
The average age in our country that kids start sending nudes is 9. 9.
Oh, my.
No.
Now, we had a case here in Rapid City. It starts with an 11-year-old boy, and he's talking with a 13-year-old girl. The 13-year-old girl sent nudes to start, and then asked for nudes back. And he's 11 and, just dumb, because all young boys.
And this wasn't a 13-year-old girl.
So he sends it, and then she ends up convincing him to send a naked video for an Amazon gift card. And he sent it, and within 60 seconds, it's like, hey, this is your mom's name. This is where you live. This is who you are. This is what's going to happen.
Oh, my God.
And he convinces this little guy. So think of like a kid being held hostage in
Yes.
their own bedroom,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So he finally goes to his mom and he's like, I'm sick of putting stuff in my butt for this guy, Mom. You have to make him quit.
Oh my God.
And he's just a little guy. And they trace this from Rhode Island to Rapid City. And we did the search warrant. And I mean, we went through, it just felt like months that we were poring over all of these images and videos, trying to ID, like, who are these kids? You have kids threatening suicide. Please don't make me do this again. I'll kill myself. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. The youngest kid that I saw in the videos was 4.
Oh my God. With access, that much free access
Absolutely.
to the internet.
Well, no, this was you have a little sister. You know what you're going to do to her?
Oh my God.
And when you think about kids,
Never crossed my mind.
when you think about kids, they get in and they instantly feel like, what if Mom and Dad find out?
Yep.
So they're willing to do the next thing. They're willing to do it. And then they don't want their devices taken away. Even kids that we've located and we're like, why didn't you tell somebody that somebody was making you do this? I didn't want my stuff. I didn't want my parents to see that. I didn't want them to watch that. You have no idea the stuff I was saying, the things that I said I wanted to do, because they role play.
Yeah.
Right? Because these people will get them down that path. And so at that point, they're willing to do just about anything.
So on what types of sites are most commonly
Those
this
portals.
is possible?
Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Discord, TikTok, Roblox. So, I always get asked about sites, and I'm like,
It's everywhere.
it is truly where kids play, predators prey. And so if kids are on there, and that includes animal jams for National Geographic, if kids are on there, so are predators. And so what we see is that, you have kids just wanting to do kid stuff and be kids on the internet, and you have those individuals that use that as access.
So when are you following the legislature this session at all? Or talking about the
porn age verification, yeah.
How is there any way to actually do that where it is legit and it's actually protecting somebody? I mean,
Yes.
is there? Okay.
So I think if you know how digital advertising works, it makes a lot more sense. So you take me and I work law enforcement. I have 5 kids, ages 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, and my husband. And you look at us and you say, I know that digital advertisers go through all of my data.
Mm-hmm.
Everything.
Yep.
My emails, my text messages, my banking, every PDF, everything, right? And they determine who I am, my socioeconomic status, what my interests are, and what I can afford. And then it gives me ads based on those interests and what I can afford. So, and then it gives me, it is hoping that the ads I get are ads I click on because they get reimbursed through that advertising, right? So crazy enough, I don't get ads for luxury jewelry. Like crazy.
Neither do I. I'm realizing.
I don't either. Yeah.
Mansions, yachts, expensive cruises. I just don't get ads for that because they could give me those ads, but I couldn't afford them. So I would never click on them, nor do I have any interest. So therefore, they would just be wasting that shot, right? So when you look at how digital advertising works, it's incredibly smart. It's the algorithm that it runs. When you were talking about Pilates, it knows you.
Yeah.
It knows what you want. So it gives you ads hoping that those are the ads that you click on. Knowing that if it gave you...
I'm getting sweaty now. It's like a stalker.
It is like a stalker.
Yeah.
But so then when you have a device that you look at and only an 8-year-old girl uses it, right?
Yeah.
This little Kindle, nobody in the house uses it. It only belongs to an 8-year-old. Why would she get pop-ups for OnlyFans?
Oh my God.
Why would she get pop-ups for Pornhub? Like, why would she get pop-ups for X videos? Like, why would a young kid, which when you think of how digital advertising works, it's so specific.
Targeted.
It's so targeted that when you look at that, all of a sudden you're like, why? Why? Like, it makes no sense. But then when you look at it, do you know how video gaming works?
Not really.
I don't really
I'm
either.
not a gamer.
So my kids don't do much of that.
So people will go online and millions of people will play for free, right? Just like porn, you watch it for free. People will go on and play online video games for free. But they get to a place of addiction where, so if you're playing online, it'll say that you have to pause for half an hour unless you're a subscriber. Then you can keep playing. So for all the people that play, a very small percentage will pay to play. But that small percentage, billions of dollars, they're whales. So they're creating that addiction hoping to snag a whale. It's no different with pornography. So one of the men that we arrested for child pornography, when we hit his house, he was a subscriber of porn stars. So he bought pillowcases, their old underwear, toys. He had, pillowcases, you name it, T-shirts. So people will go on and watch free porn for, and never pay anything. But if they catch a whale...
I never even thought of porn stars having merch.
Oh, yes, lots of merch.
Never crossed my mind.
So
wow.
when you think of pornography, escort, trafficking, they're all the same industry. So in order to see a person as an object, to be ordered like a pizza, you have to see them as an object first. That's developed. And so when they're exposing kids to pornography at young ages,
that's the goal.
The goal. When you think of years ago, the tobacco industry, when they blew that whole thing up and they were like, it feels like the tobacco industry is like courting kids. Yes. And then when they actually did subpoenas and they got all the paperwork, they realized that they were studying them. They were studying them. And then even like high up the food chain, they were saying the teenagers are our replacement smokers.
Yep.
Right. So all of a sudden they're like, we need to court them. Joe Camel, they were the flavored, all of the different things. And all of a sudden they realized like they were courting teenagers. And now you look at the porn industry and it is no different. It is the early exposure. Right. So this is what you're seeing.
I mean, it changes the brain.
Yeah. And when I talked to the legislators, I had mentioned that my coworker, Matt, was in the lab, and he pulls up this 11-year-old girl's phone, and he's like, Hollie, she has 52 tabs open on her internet browser, and over 20 of those are porn.
Oh, my.
And both of us comment on how normal that is. Give me a 10-year-old boy, a 10-year-old girl, give me their phone, and I'll show you porn. It's just everywhere.
Julie, how old are your kids?
10 and 13.
And it's...
Oh, God.
One of my friends was reading a book, and she said, this author talked about her mom wouldn't let her walk down the street alone, couldn't do sleepovers, babysitters were only family members, just kind of, she said,
had a device.
And she said her mom did everything she could to physically prevent anybody from getting to her. And she said, but she let me have a phone. And she said, I was full on addicted by 12. And she said her and her friends thought it was funny to send each other porn videos. And she said, and it's no different now. Absolutely. And boys, girls, it doesn't matter. It's absolutely no different.
Okay, so how do you protect your kids better than doing nothing at all or the bare minimum? What do I need to talk to my kids about?
So
can I just bring them to you and you can talk to my kids?
Sadly, we try to get parents in for the parent presentation. We're like, look, you're that first line of defense. You have to know what this is up. Like, again, if somebody knocked on your front door and asked to talk to your kid, you would be
mortified.
And you'd be, that mama bear would come out of you. But yet we can't protect what we don't see. Right. And the problem is when you look at an outside of a phone, you don't know what's on the inside. Even as a forensic examiner, there's times where we can't get into a device, like the tools, our forensic tools won't work, and I have to go through it manually. That is completely different. I feel like every parent that's trying to sort through their kid's device, and it just doesn't work because unless you know what you're looking for, you're not going to be able to find. So, like with my kids, we use Gabb phones, GABB.com. Now, what I like about Gabb is that when your kids start, you just give them a phone and it talks and it texts. That's it.
That's all they need.
Yep, and that's all they need. Detective Elliot Harding, we were talking one time and he's like, Hollie, I get when we ask parents, why do you give your kid a phone?
A
like
weapon.
a supercomputer that just happens to make phone calls. And they're like, well, my kids are away from me. I need to be able to keep in touch. And I was like, and he said, that's totally normal. That's acceptable. I get that. And he said, but why is it when they come home, they still get to keep it? Why is it this nonstop toy that engages them with
Fair question.
the most horrible parts of the internet? And sadly, it comes back to it's a babysitter.
Yeah.
It's a babysitter. So like with our gap phones, our kids can call and they can text. They're also kind of a learning program or learning phone. So when my 14-year-old son gets links, they're factory created that they cannot go online and they can't install apps.
Okay.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So when his buddy sends him a YouTube link, my husband and I will get an alert that there was a link that was sent. We'll watch it, and we'll sit down with our son and be like, so what would a college recruiter expect you to say after watching that video? Because all their text messages are up for grabs.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's private on that device. So trying to get kids to understand, like, this is stuff that a college recruiter, a job recruiter is going to see. Your text messages are easy targets. Those are easy things for data brokers to get. So, and so you learn. You're teaching your kids. And then the next step is you can send pictures and videos. And then the next step up for the phone is you can install apps like Audible, Maps, Weather. You can choose as a parent. They don't have access. It won't even show on their device unless you log on as the parent and enable that. And then the next update, they're able to have it. So I think parents are finally realizing that, you can't give them a device which you can't look through. I have to say that during the rally, like during the undercover operations, I was laugh because, every guy that chats always asks these kids, do you have Snap? And I ask, because parents are like, what's wrong with Snap? Then why is it that every guy that wants to go meet and have sex with a kid wants to talk to him on Snap?
Right.
I mean, that should be your biggest red flag. But
What is the reason they use that?
because the parents can't observe the messages.
Because are those the ones that disappear quickly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And so, obviously Gab phones can't have Snap. And, Bark phones, bark.us is another one. They have Bark phones and Bark supervision. That's actually what we use for our internet supervision is Bark.
Okay.
So we have the Gab phones and then we use Bark, and that monitors all internet in our house.
You said it was
Wow.
BARK.US.
K.us, yeah.
Do you find now, because I think a lot of organizations and schools, for example, like they recognize like the threat that so much of this poses to kids. And so there is more. I mean, I know even what like the school counselor addresses with kids. And one of the things is, if you don't know them in person, they're not your friend. Like even just those basic things. Are any of those lessons, are kids soaking in any of that kind of?
No. Okay. No. Here's the sad part is you're warning your kids, like, hey, turn off the location. You don't want some bad guy just showing up. We had a guy drive 8.5 hours to hook up with what he thought was a 14-year-old girl. Thank God he was talking with one of our undercovers the whole time. But, you tell these kids, take off your location, don't have it set up. But what are all the YouTubers doing? Hey guys, I'm at McDonald's. Hey guys, I'm at the mall. Hey guys, I'm here. They update their location nonstop. So these people that kids look up to are constantly sharing their location. They say where they're at all the time. And so then you tell your kids, hey, you should turn it off. And they're like, no. And I think, stranger danger has just kind of lost its feel because what do we do now? I mean, we engage with strangers all the time online. With strangers deliver stuff to the house.
Your home.
Ubers, Lyfts. You get in the car with strangers. I mean, it's just a different feel. And trying to get kids, they just don't even get, like, they'll date a picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, do you remember the episode we did on what did we call it? The Spygate?
Oh, yeah.
Where, this kid was he created all these online personas to court the object of his affection, and the object of his affection thought he was a girl his age, and it wasn't. I mean, this boy was in love with this other boy, and what he ended up leading this boy to do was just absolutely insane. This was in the UK, but man, it was just the wildest story. And like you said, it's that I can get you to do a little bit now, and then that becomes believable and normalized, and then I can stretch it from there, and then from there, and then pretty soon it's like what we had, buried treasure in the sea, and and
it sounds so ridiculous, but
out of context,
for it.
Yeah, but it's it's the frog in the pot of boiling water, you know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's sad, but you see kids and they learn it's so much safer to engage with people online. And like you grab a 12-year-old boy who is shy and a little insecure, and online when he's talking with people, he can be very witty, have a great sense of humor because he has all the time he needs to respond, right? But when his friends are like, hey, you guys, you want to go grab pizza? No, I'm all right. Why? Because he's not that face-to-face. And so you'll see these kids withdraw, or you see these kids where these girls, have every kind of filter on their face, right? And so when they're engaging online, they're beautiful, they're stunning, their eyes are sparkling, their face is flawless. And then it's like, hey, do you want to go out? No, I'm all right. Because face-to-face, they don't look like that, and face-to-face, they don't act like that. So you see and they call them the anxious generation.
Yes.
Yeah, the anxious generation that when you're online, you have this ability to be somebody you're not, which then puts kids in a position that they are withdrawing from regular interaction.
Yeah.
And they're flawed, and they're constantly reinforcing that they are inherently flawed. So that just self-reinforces.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could ask you a million questions. I'll try and keep just a couple of them. So my eldest does not get a phone all the time. Okay, I'm like, you go to school, I know where you are. There's no reason to have a phone there. So we have very specific situations where we allow phone usage. And one of the things, so a year ago, I rarely let him have it. And we had a police officer, school resource officer, did a presentation, and he was giving a lot of the same warnings that you are, of course. And I said, here's what gets me is that, I don't care. I know he's not the only person who doesn't have a phone or who doesn't get to be on social media or all these things. I'm okay with it, but then we're in certain organizations or sports or this or that, and they want to communicate, and sometimes it's even school-sanctioned things. That's how they're communicating. And I'm going, here are the adults who know the dangers for the kids, potentially, are saying, this is how I'm going to communicate with you. And fortunately, we've yet to have somebody say we're doing it via Snapchat, but I do know of people that their teams communicate via Snapchat, and it pisses me off.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do about it.
I have held a very firm line as a parent that if you're communicating for any sports, any activity that has to do with my kid, the app is on my phone and you communicate with me. I look back when I was playing ball, all sports that I was in, everything I engaged in, I cannot fathom somebody calling a coach, assistant coach, somebody calling my house and saying, hey, can I talk to your daughter?
Yeah.
I mean, it would be so awkward. Even for a teacher to be like, hey, can I talk to your kid? It'd be like, no, I'm the adult and you talk to me. Right. But you're seeing a shift where it's like you're seeing a lot of just that direct conversation between coaches, assistant coaches,
teachers, and
teachers,
students.
leaders.
Yep.
And one, the liability there, because there's no oversight. You know what I mean? There's no oversight. Nobody's watching those communications. Can be pretty dangerous. We saw that during COVID. There was a huge uptick across the country, around the world, with individuals in youth serving organizations that were exploiting kids. It was the first time they had one-on-one access, in which it was very normal to send messages directly. But there's also this shift in, all right, I'm going to talk to the players and we're going to decide what we're going to do, and then go home and tell your parents what we're going to do. Where it used to be the parents would sit down and say, let's play these tournaments, let's do this. And the parents were the ones deciding. And now you see more and more where, you've got a coach and then all the players that are on the group thread and they're making decisions. And it's like, yeah, let your parents know. Let your parents know. And it's like, no, absolutely not. That's not how we play in our house. That's not how we, and I always tell the coaches, you have no business having direct conversations with my kids. You don't.
Unless you're on the field, the court.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But a conversation which I can't supervise.
Right.
Well, and even, as a warning to youth serving organizations.
Quit doing that.
Yeah, quit doing that. Just as an example, let's just say you have a very high-risk youth and you have a coach. And she thinks he's just great. He is so nice, and he's just
the only nice guy in her life.
Yep, only nice guy. And she decides to send him some nudes. And now you have this coach or a youth pastor or somebody with pictures, inappropriate, of some 17-year-old girl. And then it's like, well, who was supervising that conversation to begin with? And why was it being done? I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I work late, and I can't imagine, getting off and texting somebody at 10 o'clock at night, which, depending on the person, I may still text them. But imagine a coach or somebody who gets home at 9 o'clock and a parent going, what are you doing texting my daughter?
Yeah.
What are you doing texting my son at 9:30 at night? And thinking, well, I'm not even thinking about it like that. That direct line of communication can get really squirrely.
Yeah.
And so really encouraging parents to say communication between your kids and other people should be supervised. It should, especially if you don't know them.
Yeah.
They can get squirrely.
Absolutely.
So I just heard a parent say this the other day, which is they were very strict about their teenagers' use of a cell phone, basically didn't permit it until they were in high school. Which is a lot longer than a lot of people. I mean, part of me was like, that's awesome. But one of the things she said was, I have to be completely honest, my kid was depressed because he was completely disconnected from the actual friend conversations. And I kind of wanted to be like, I don't care. But we're to some extent in that boat now, where I've given a little bit of an inch. We do monitor very closely, but I'm like, I do get it. I get where she was coming from, saying his attitude changed completely because suddenly he went from being basically on the outs simply because he couldn't communicate easily with his friends to now he's like a whole new kid who's happy and healthy and all these things. And it's like, do I get it? Yes, but I am terrified.
Yes.
So what do you say to those parents? How can you both let your child live in a digital world, which we're all living in too, and keep them safe?
It is a very tough balance. And I don't know, I would say that I would rather err on the side of caution. Not all engagement between kids is appropriate. I always think of if you had a bunch of teenagers in your house, and would you let all the boys and all the girls go downstairs in the basement where you can't hear or see anything, knowing that anything that happens down there is going to be, every parent's going to be calling and saying, this happened at your house.
These analogies are great.
Oh, but
I mean, that's why you're the expert. I mean, they really drive home.
Yeah, but you would be like, no, we're going to supervise.
No, thanks.
Yep, we're going to supervise. But when you allow your kids to have that absolute
autonomy,
unsupervised access, and they're just going, I think every parent, if I could show this video, I would love to show this video. It was an interview with this kid, I call him a kid. During the rally one year, we were selling a 13-year-old girl. And he responded to the ad. And of course, he's asking about, can he have her without a condom? Can he asking, all the normal questions that they ask of pimps. And he just kind of throws out there, he's like, if you want to stay in the room and watch, you can.
To the
So we're
pimp.
like, to the pimp. And all of a sudden it's like, what in the world? Like, who are we dealing with here? And in the interview, so, they go to the arrest site and he's there. They pick him up, arrest him. And in the interview, they asked him about that. Like, what gives? You ask the pimp to watch you have sex with a 13-year-old? What is that about? And his head drops. And he was like, man, he goes, I have a bad problem. He said, I started looking at porn when I was like 13, 14. And he's like, he said, he asked the agent, do you know how porn works? And he goes on, he's like, because you look at it and then it gets boring. So you look for something else and he looks for something else and look for something else and look for something else. He goes, I take Viagra and sometimes that doesn't even work anymore.
Oh, wow.
And he was 24 years old.
Oh, my God.
24 years old, 10 years in
Ruined.
federal prison. Yeah, 10 years. And I looked at him and I was like, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy or my worst enemy's kid. And when you look at kids and you're like, should I let them have the phone in which they will be constantly exposed to pornography? Do I take that chance? And if you were to go down to our office now and ask them about, when we're arresting 18, 19, 20-year-olds with possession of child pornography, and they say, I started looking when I was 10. Like I started looking at porn when I was 10 and I just ran out of stuff to look at. I was in a middle school and I had this kid, an 8th grader. He was like, hey, he goes, what is it okay if we look at porn that doesn't involve kids or classmates? And I said, well, hey, do you play video games? And he goes, yeah, I play video games. I said, like Grand Theft Auto, Call of Duty, Madden. He goes, I play all of those. And I said, what did they do every year? What did they come out with? He goes, well, the next edition. I was like, yeah, the next edition. I said, what if they didn't? He goes, I probably wouldn't play it. I said, why? He goes, well, it'd be boring. He's like, they got to add new stuff to it. I said, you're in 8th grade. I said, if you start looking at porn right now, whatever you're looking at right now, in 3 months, I said, in 3 months, it's going to be boring. I said, you're going to find something else. And I said, 3 months from then, you're going to have to find something else in 3 months. I said, what are you going to be looking at for porn when you're 18? Because you're going to run out. You're either going to go young or violent. And I said, that's what we are seeing.
Young or violent. Wow.
And I said, unfortunately, just in federal court, we were talking about at a sentencing, and the defense attorney said, I've been to Hollie's presentation. I've been up to testify on what I found in his stuff. And she said, unfortunately, we are looking at this, that we are going to end up with 18, 19-year-olds that are arrested with possession of child pornography and arrested for child exploitation. And because they are starting down this sexual path at 10, 11, 12 years old. So with parents, I'm like, stand the line. Your kids need to be, riding bikes and in the backyard and playing ball. I tell my kids, like, go break your leg. Go do something. But I will say that sadly, a lot of parents are seeing that video games, computers, and their phones as a babysitter.
Yeah.
And I've had parents say, I can put my daughter on the couch and with the tablet, she won't move for 4 hours. And it's like, I get it. We're all busy. I totally get that. People say, I can take a shower, I can cook dinner, I can take a nap. My kids are totally occupied if they're on their phone. But the second I take the phone away or I take that tablet away, it comes to, I'm bored. Go out to any restaurant. And kids,
I know.
Kids cannot be uncomfortable right now. The second they get a little, they get uncomfortable, they get bored, what do parents do?
Hand them a device.
And
we were on vacation in Breckenridge last summer. And we were out on a patio having a glorious day. There was a big family. Clearly, they'd traveled to have a vacation together. all the kids were at one table, probably 8 of them, all looking down at their devices, and all the adults were drinking and having a great time. One of the things we did with our son, who's an adult now, and I think we started when he was, I don't remember. It was definitely middle school. We had this talk about hormones and the stuff and pornography and all the stuff. And I framed it in a way that, this could easily have been your mom. This could easily be your sister. Like, you need to think about the victims in these things. And then we put something called Custodio on all of his devices. So we could literally see any search engine, anything put in a browser, any text message, any email, anything. So it was like we could turn our devices into his device, any of his devices, and just said, okay, you have choices, And then when he was 18 and off to college, I said, we'll take it off, and, just hopefully you don't get sucked into this industry that is built on predation and victimization. And, while there are some adults who consciously choose to go into that industry, I would guess, not knowing any statistics, the majority of content is derived out of victimization.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
Yep. And I love the fact the supervision is huge. I think where I hear parents talk about is like, I don't have time to look at it. I don't have time to watch that. Or kids get phones from other kids. And I mean, it's crazy, just the amount. But I mean, hats off that the supervision, and that's what it requires. Like, we have bark on our stuff. And so we're going, the kids had to do gun laws. And so we kept getting alerts.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. Yep.
Violence. I
Yeah.
was like, it's a Second Amendment, and it would say Second Amendment and then gun violence. Yeah. But I mean, I'm thankful that there's tools for parents now. I think in the beginning, parents didn't have any tools.
Right.
I think the warning I would say is that don't be over-reliant. I love the fact that you were having conversations, because that's a big part of it.
Right.
It's like, it's not if you're going to see porn, it's when you're going to see porn, and let's talk about it.
Yep.
It's not if you're going to see your classmates naked, it's when you're going to see them naked. And what are you going to do with that? Are you going to send it? What are you going to do with it? So making sure that we're having those right conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of kids, what do your kids think and say? And are they like, gosh darn it, I'm Hollie Strand's child, and that means like
I'm safe. That's what that means.
It does mean they're safer than most kids for sure, but is it hard for them?
I think it is. My oldest
They'll
daughter,
appreciate it later.
yes,
They will. Yes, I agree.
and my oldest daughter, she wants to grow up and work ICAC, and she always reminds me,
Wow.
Dad does not want me to do that because nobody should have to have that job. I was like,
True.
I was like, I know, I know, and I was like, but if that's where God leads you, so be it. But it's funny because we have our 2 little guys we adopted from foster care a couple years ago, and so they came from like having Xbox and PlayStation at their former foster home into our house. And first thing they were like, I don't think you guys like technology very much. And I was like, I love tech, but it has a place.
Yeah.
It has a
Yeah.
place, and I have found that with my kids, like 20 minutes of electronics is about what they can handle.
Okay.
After that, I hear them, knock it off, give it back, it's my turn. Just there's something that flips in their head when they have that overstimulus. And so, I'm like, all right, 20 minutes and then go get your dopamine in the backyard. Like, you have to do something different. I think they're very jealous of their
Yeah.
classmates that don't have that. But I think we've opened that for our kids. Like, if I'm on my phone all the time, call me on it. So they have the right to say, you've been on your phone for a long time.
Yeah. I feel like I'm very guilty of that. Part of it's that I read. So, like, my hobby is reading. And so if I have a chance just to sit there, like, I like it because it's light. And, I used to have like an e-reader, and it was after a little while, like, it would get heavy in my hands. And so I just started watching on my phone. And it's like, do my kids understand that for me, that is picking up a book? No, not necessarily.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So when we go in the schools, one of the things that we share with the kids is that the retention level, that when you were reading off a screen versus reading off paper, is 72% retention that drops. And so I'll tell the kids, like, hey, if you're struggling in math, write it down. If you have a big test, write it down. I have court tomorrow. And so I have 15 pages of questions. I print them off. I write notes. I handle them. I mean, they show, even when you think of interviewing a sexual assault victim, right? You're interviewing them and you say, like, do you remember what he looked like? I don't remember. And then you're like, tell me what he smelled like. He smelled like beer and cigarettes. And boom, that's a different part of the brain that memory is stored, right? So when you see something, hear something, taste something, smell something, that is why almost every tech giant sends their kids to school where there's no technology. Because they have to use their hands, their eyes. I mean, everything is tactile. And so when they're learning, they're using all five senses. And so when they recall, like, they're going to recall it from all different five senses. When you're reading off a screen, I mean, very, very little brain engagement. And then a month later, the recall is so small.
Right.
And so with kids, you see kids that are struggling, is absolutely struggling.
Yeah, everything is on the computer.
Everything. Their math is on the computer. All their books are on computers. Tests are on computers. And then, I mean, look at our test scores across our nation. Yep. It's awful. Absolutely awful. And so with kids, I always, like, grab a book. And we have probably, I don't know, maybe 1,300 books at our house. Like, we have an entire library. And so with the kids, I'm always like, I used to read on a reader too, but that was really with my kids of, like, well, when do I get a reader? When do I get a reader? I was like, no, we're reading books. So I put mine away. And yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
But, you know, I do notice now that you say that, I think about how I grew up. I still prefer, if I have something that I need to read through, I will still print it off because I find I hold a pen in my hand and I'm engaging with it. Yep. And that must be why I do that.
Yep.
Same.
Yeah. I will have to read things so many more times if it's on a screen than if I'm holding it on paper.
Yep. Same here.
Yeah.
Okay. So another quick question. We'll wrap up our time here soon. So you do, I think, kind of a horrible job. Like, I'm not going to lie. I'm never going to want to do what you do.
Has a horrible job. I think she does a great job.
She does a great job at a horrible job.
At a horrible job, yeah.
What do you do to not just get depressed? How do you protect your own mental health?
It is tough. I am very thankful for our department. Sheriff's Office, Police Department, DCI, we all work together at ICAC. And there's this understanding, like, if you get kicked in the soul, you're like, I'm done. You leave for the day. There's just this understanding. And my husband and I, like, I refuse to lose my husband and my family over this job. Yeah. And so, like, if I call my husband, I'm like, I get kicked in the soul today, he knows I'm probably going to be a little bit ornery. Right? And so the goal is, he's like, I'm taking the kids to the park. You come home, take a bath, whatever it is that you need to just regroup. And then, we've had conversations about, like, if it gets bad and I change who I am, like, he's the first one that's throwing in the towel, as in, Hollie, you're done. Yeah. And I trust him enough. He's my best friend. And so if he were like, Hollie, this isn't working anymore, he'd be the first one. What's crazy is, like, I can't even look at a paper cut. And it's so weird because my kids get hurt and I'm like, oh, go see your dad.
Yeah.
Oh, gross,
dad
gross,
duty.
gross.
That sounds like a dad duty.
Yep.
Yeah.
They scrape their knee. I'm like, oh, no, go see your dad or your sister. I can't. And my husband will laugh like, you know what you do for a living? I'm like, I can't do that. I can't. So I always laugh that I always feel like God has just given me this ability to look at the pictures, look at the videos, and not remember.
Oh, God
not
bless
remember.
You, though.
I just don't remember. But at the same time I do. Like my coworkers, I've looked at over 1 million images and videos. So there's times where, like, especially new coworkers will come in and be like, hey, you've looked at the most stuff in our office. Do you recognize this kid? You know, do you recognize this? Is this something new, or is that like something you've seen thousands of times? So there's
so
the
that
ability.
recall, you can do that.
Yep, I can do that. But there's no going home and it sticks and it stays.
Okay.
And I always told my husband, like, if we get to a place like that, then I'm
You're
done.
recalling it.
Yep, then I'm done. I'm done. Yeah. But and it's funny because just in our job, like if you were shopping for shoes, right, and you were looking for,
Who does that?
nobody does that. So you're shopping for shoes and you were scrolling through and for an hour, you're just looking at shoes. And then when you close your eyes, what do you see? And you may not see the shoes, but it's just kind of that.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's running in the background.
Yep.
Yeah,
And so, you know, they, nationwide standards, they'll tell us to, like, watch movies. So people make fun of us if you go into our office. Most of the time there's like a movie playing, there's something playing in the background.
Oh.
Because they say that it like stores it somewhere different in your brain.
Okay.
Yeah, to prevent that kind of recall. But yeah,
Well, that's slick.
yeah.
Interesting.
I had a friend who became a detective for a while, and then when she had her first child,
Couldn't do it.
couldn't do it anymore.
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah.
When I was a forensic interviewer, we started interviewing kids at the age of 3 for sexual assault. And so when I started, I didn't have kids. And then when my kiddos got to be 3 years old, it meant something completely different. To
Absolutely.
have your own kiddos and be like 3,
Yeah.
yeah, it meant something completely different. And, you know, whether we like it or not, you know, when we write reports, it's like, this is a video of a girl approximately 6 to 9 years old, whatever it is. You can't help but use your own kids when you're trying to guess ages,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh.
Yep. Trying to guess
Hollie.
ages. I know but again, God has, like, there's just and you know Brent Gromer.
Yeah.
And I remember when Brent first started, or when I first started, and Brent said, you'll either see it as evidence or you'll get sucked into the tragedy of it. Like, that's where you'll go. And there'll be some people, he was like, there's some people that will see it and they will see it as evidence and it will propel them further down the road of ICAC of like, I'm going to find these kids. I'm going to, you know, we're going to hold people accountable. And he said, and there's going to be some people that they will do the exposure exercise and they're done.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm done. And in my mind, I'm like, no, that's evidence. That's evidence. That's evidence. Yeah.
I have a feeling I know where Julie would fall.
Right.
She's crying right now. Yeah. That did it. That did it. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
And I think,
I don't have the horrible job. She does.
yeah.
That would be kudos to you, like, really. Because what if we didn't have people who are willing
I
to
know.
do that?
I know.
We have such an awesome team over there. Seriously.
How many people are on this team?
So 3 with the police department, 2 with the sheriff's office, and then 2 DCI.
Okay.
And I would guess if you had 10 times as many, you would all be busy.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
the sickening part of the whole thing.
Yeah. We're supposed to be more proactive, you know, like catching those that are trading, producing. But when the cyber tips are that, I mean, they're just crazy high, you're reacting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You're just investigating. And
Have you ever been burned out?
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it gets there.
Just due to the like sheer caseload or
Yes.
yeah.
Yep. And sometimes, I mean, I think our department is different from other places nationwide because we get out in the community. We do a lot of the prevention and education. Some of the places out there, they work ICAC and they just sit in a lab and that's all they do. They don't go in the community. There's no prevention, education. They don't feel that balance.
Like connected.
Yeah.
So I know this happens to my husband a lot, having worked with children for so many years that, you know, now they're grown up and he's, you know, been involved in their lives getting through really hard things. And so they come to him, they recognize him, they give him updates. Do you ever have that happen
Oh, yeah.
in the community?
Oh, yeah. And I just love that. So my favorite Bible verse is Genesis 50:20. You intended to harm me, but God meant it for good, for what's being done now, the saving of many lives. And you see some of these kids come out of the most horrible, horrible situations, and they're like, I'm going to be a prosecutor. I'm going to be a police officer. I'm going to be a counselor. I'm going to work rehabilitation. I'm going to do this. And you look at them and you're like, that's what I see when I look through the images and videos. I'm like, that's our next round of law enforcement. That's our next round of child protection. That's our next round of prosecution, advocates, mental health. There they are right there.
And they remember you, I suppose, and thank you. And
I had one where I was in a school and I got this little letter and she said, I don't know if you remember me, but you interviewed me. And I was very scared and they needed to talk to my mom and you watched a movie with me. And it was like the only kid that I ever watched a movie with.
Oh, wow.
And so I knew exactly who she was and she looked familiar when I walked in the room, but I mean, it would have been like 4 years. Yeah. And she just said, she was like, I just want to thank you for talking to me and thank you for doing that. And yeah. And some of those things where you just
you don't know what's
don't
going to make
expect
the
it.
impact, but it
No.
does. Yeah.
And so many times kids just need somebody to share their story with. They need to be heard. And somebody that, is hearing them and not like, I'm going to kill somebody or, crying or calling them a liar. They just need somebody to hear them.
So how much of it, like, and I'm just feel, I don't know if you have an actual statistic, but when you think about like children trying to have a voice and be heard, like this is happening to me, please pay attention, versus you identify the thing that's wrong and help them be like understand that this isn't okay and give them a safe space with which to come forward. Like, do you?
So here is the absolute saddest thing about my job is that, at the end of a case, all of the pictures and videos that I bookmark, I will send to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and they will look through all of the images and videos. They're the clearinghouse, right?
Right.
So, I could send them 130,000. And I would probably get less than 200 kids that were actually I need. Wow. Which shows over and over that kids don't tell.
Yeah.
They just don't tell. And so of all, I don't know if you watch the movie Sound of Freedom. People ask me all that question all the time, like, Sound of Freedom, how true is it? And I was like, well, the number one connoisseurs of child pornography, child abuse material are Americans. The number one country to travel to have sex with kids, Americans.
Really?
Of all the cases we work, the kids that we identify, very, very, very few. Of all the people we arrest, very few do we recover kids. Do we recover kids or ID kids? And that is the sad part, is that, for kids that do come forward, we have resources, there's support, there's counseling, there's all of it. But the saddest thing is, like, we're never able to say your pictures and videos are not out there anymore.
Right.
And I think, I teach this intro to forensic science class, and I was just sharing with, it was on Monday, we were studying arson. And the two highest reasons for arson are insurance fraud and revenge. And so I was asking the students, like, give me some other things people do for revenge. And I said, I want you to think digitally. And I had all these teenagers, they're all high school. And I was like, think about what that means when you send naked pictures to somebody you're dating now. Like your best friend right now may not be your friend a month from now.
A week from now.
Yeah. And think about those
that's
sending.
really hard for kids to even, again, like when you're an adult and you look back, you go, I mean, there were boys I dated, I don't even remember their name,
Yeah.
And so to think that if they had something that was personal to me, and I can't even remember their name 20 years later, but when you're that age, it's so hard to imagine that the people in your life won't always be in your life.
They just don't
or in
get
the
it.
same way.
They just, when the stats came out, I think in January, there was a 360% increase in 7 to 10-year-olds sending nudes.
I think I just had a stroke. Can you repeat that? Honestly, my brain intentionally blocked you.
360% increase in 7 to 10-year-olds sending nudes.
Oh my God.
7 to 10-year-olds. And you know a 7 to 10-year-old is not understanding the longevity of sending nudes.
The permanence of
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
So, when I first started in ICAC, child abuse material, child pornography that was out there, majority, 75% of it was created by somebody known to the child, usually in the child's home or somebody close to the child, right? And then, boom, this huge explosion where so much of it is self-produced.
Yeah.
Self-produced.
How is AI factoring into your work now? Both on the content side and the...
It's huge. I mean, any kid, and this is the hard part too, is like the advertisements for nudifying their friends. Nudifying.
Right? What?
Yeah. You can take a family photo and have it completely nudified and everybody is naked. And
there was a big scandal at a school in California where they were, so the girls, their classmates, just their faces. I mean, just a typical photo. And these boys were using AI to make them.
Well, and one of the moms said.
And then it was shared.
Well, one of the moms said, she goes, now everybody in school knows that's not my daughter. That's her face that was posted on a picture. She said, but nobody outside of the school will ever know.
Right.
Yes.
Yep. So AI is it's crazy. I mean, there's sometimes where I'm looking at the screen and I mean, unless I'm zooming in on something and look and I'm like, nope, that's a real kid. And then whatever, tracing it backwards and I'm like, no, that was AI. That's...
So now there are completely AI generated children as well.
Correct.
So are the laws keeping up with that, or is that a whole new arena? Like, do we still have a victim? Like, how does that
State and federal laws are keeping up. So in July, we had it July of last year that producing content, even with using AI.
Okay.
Good.
Because, beforehand, let's just say we had one of the cases go to trial and it was a cyber tip and it was like a famous star and it was her face as a child on a child's naked body. And therefore, it still was considered in federal court child pornography, right? Because it was a child's body. But how many times do you have a child's face put on a 17, 18, 19? So it could be 17 is still falls into that category, but it could be 18, 19. So you don't even know the age, but it's still a kid's face. And what they were saying is, if you're creating content that where you're exploiting a kid, right?
Yes.
You're using their face. And now you have programs where it basically undresses people.
Yeah.
So it's not cutting their face off and putting it on a body. It's something completely AI is running hard.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I guess it's just like anything else, like money, alcohol, whatever. AI makes us more of what we actually are, right? So we're showing the world who we are by using these tools in that way.
Absolutely.
It's disgusting.
It's horrible.
Hollie.
I have to say, you have a really great podcasting voice.
Thank you.
Yes, I think our listeners are going to really enjoy this. And as hard of a topic as it is, this is probably one of my favorite episodes. Except you have to listen to it twice.
I'm still going with.
Julie's going to need a mental health break after this.
Yeah, a little bit.
I'm
But
sorry.
I do thoroughly appreciate the knowledge and the insight and the education and the awareness. And you just have to do the best you can.
Absolutely.
But if you don't know any of it, you can't do much with it.
Right.
So.
Holly, would you be willing to send me a list of resources we can post with
Absolutely.
the episode? Okay.
Absolutely.
So we'll make sure our listeners have that in the show notes. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Before we go, because my rule for doing this podcast is that we end on a happy note.
Okay.
Which is where we came up with, where do we get to escape to
Or what? Or,
that we actually want to be? Charity, do you have one?
Do I have one? Pass me. I'll come back.
Holly, do you have one?
I do.
Oh, good.
I do. So we got chickens.
So you have cheap eggs?
I do have cheap eggs.
Yes.
And chickens running is the funniest, goofiest thing. Nobody told me how entertaining
Running,
chickens would be. So, like, they know my voice. So when I come out with snacks, they are hilarious. So I just love to feed my chickens and,
That's
my
fun.
kids giggling in the background.
Yeah.
And,
Aww.
I love it.
That's
I
really
love
fun.
it. That's a really good one.
Yes.
Excellent.
That is cute.
You?
I think
Did you
I'm
come up with one?
I'm just going to get my hair gray covered up. That's
Oh.
what I'm escaping to.
Well,
Head
that's
massage.
fun.
Yeah.
Oh.
There you
She's
go.
very good at that.
You know what? I have asked my stylist before, if I were having a really bad day, would you just wash my hair? And she's like, absolutely. I've never taken her up on it, but quite frankly, after this
Today
episode,
might be the day.
I might have to. Thank you so much,
what are you
Hollie,
escaping
for
to?
coming. Oh my goodness. Well, a swim meet. But then the season is over, so I am about to escape.
Okay.
And you know how much I love that sport.
Yeah, I know, but you're still running all the time, and
But it's time to be done for like 5 or 6 weeks. I think we'll get a break.
Nice.
But it's a long season and longer than it ever was when I was growing up.
right.
Like you
Every
commented,
sport
things
is that
have
way.
changed so
Yep.
much. And so I just, so I will soon get to just escape the running around. I still love the sport. I love what it does for my kids. Really love the team and the people that are part of it. But the back and forth of it is about to be done, and I will not be sad about that. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate every one of you. We really appreciate Hollie for being here
Yes.
today. If you like what you heard, even if you don't like what you heard, but you're glad you heard it because you're more informed now, please share with a friend who you think might appreciate it too. We are doing this in our spare time. I always put that in quotation marks, Hollie, because we don't have spare time, but we are trying to provide operational support for the nonprofit where we work here at One Heart, where our mission is empowering people to overcome crisis and achieve self-sustainability.
That's right. We're a true podcast for a cause, so you can really feel good about spreading the word. Please rate and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can do that right on our website at escapepod.live. Link out to our socials from there. You can reach out to us for any kind of commentary on this episode or any others at justbecause@escapepod.live. Give us an idea for a future episode, or you can share your story of escape with us at escapeartist@escapepod.live.
We are closing the hatch on this episode of the Escape Pod. Remember, trauma may be inevitable. How you grapple with it is optional. So stay resilient.
And clearly follow Hollie's lead in learning how to compartmentalize.
For sure.
Keep laughing, everybody.
Bye.